You are listening to The Radar, a weather-related podcast hosted by the Valley's #1 meteorologists.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Radar podcast. This is the weather-themed podcast here at 21 News. I'm Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm, and this podcast is mostly about the weather, of course, but we sometimes will dive into other kind of weather-adjacent or more science-y topics other than just straight meteorology. But today we are going to geek out. We're going to kind of talk about how to be a proper weather geek in 2025. The equipment, what things you can buy either inexpensively or maybe spend a little bit more money, and how you can actually become an asset to the kind of the weather enterprise, to TV meteorologists, to the National Weather Service, and the greater weather enterprise as a whole. So if you like keeping tabs on the weather more than the average person, if you like gizmos and gadgets and doodads, this is going to be the podcast for you. We're going to be talking about how to be the best weather geek you can possibly be. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being a weather geek. We should embrace being a weather geek. We wish we had more true weather geeks and nerds out there. We certainly need them. We like data in the weather business. We like having as much weather data, as many observations as possible. So we want people out there too. If you're kind of a closeted weather geek, we'd like you to join us in the kingdom of geekiness here in the weather community. And well, today my guest is one of the biggest weather geeks across our area that I know. This is Ralph Mack. He's from Canfield. And Ralph, you've been providing us with cool data and observations and statistics and pictures and you name it for years and years now. Let's start out. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're originally from and how long you've kind of lived in our area.
All right, I am right here from Youngstown. Lived here until the age of 22. At the age of 22, I had the idea of going to South Florida. I just graduated college, and I lived in South Florida for 22 years, or 25 years actually. And I was always a weather geek prior to going down there. But when you live in South Florida, the very first thunderstorm I went through in South Florida, I was like, wow, how is that not a warned storm? And I went through 3 or 4 of them before I realized a South Florida thunderstorm was something totally different than what I was used to in this area. So 25 years down there, I saw a lot of things. Hurricanes. I actually drove into a tornado one day coming home from the beach. And it was when alerts were just coming out on your phone, and I remember driving up A1A and Indiantown Road in Jupiter, Florida, and it says, if you are on A1A and Indiantown Road in Jupiter currently, you are in the midst of a tornado. And I was like, there it was.
Wow.
I was being pushed sideways in my truck into a curb and I was in a tornado.
Wow.
Yeah. So that really enhanced being a weather geek.
Sure.
I lived down there for 25 years, lived in Atlanta, Georgia, lived in Southern Pines, North Carolina as well. And I am back in this area. Canfield is home base now.
And in your time in the South, especially in Florida, is there a hurricane event that really stands out as particularly memorable during your time there?
You know, I lived there. I only evacuated for 3 storms: Andrew in '92, Francis and Jean in 2004. And the one that really got me off guard was a late season storm. It was October of 2005. It was Hurricane Wilma. And, you know, when you prepare for a hurricane down there, you know, you prepare for a category 1, 2, 3. And it was coming across the west side of the state. So it was going to dissipate, we thought, prior to coming over the east side of the state. And it came across as a 3. And I remember that storm, the front end winds were 95, 100 miles an hour at my house. The eye came over, and that was the first eye I'd ever been in. We were outside throwing the football, and I remember seeing the trees, this wildlife sanctuary behind where I lived, coming from the other direction. The trees were bending in another direction. I'm like, well, here comes the back half. So we went back in for the second half, and I remember the second half of the storm, we had 115, 120 mile an hour winds on the back half. And usually the back half of the storm is the lesser of the 2 evils, and it was just, it was something to behold. And I did a phone in for a weather gentleman down there, meteorologist down there. And I remember saying, you know, Mike, I think I'm going to my safe room right now because I was actually scared. I remember peeking out, a little peek out and on my patio, And I was just watching the wind speed on my home base, and I was like, I need to go to my home, my safe room. And it made for great TV, but it was actually something I did that afternoon.
Sure. You know, those experiences, those aren't something we see very often in Ohio, certainly.
Yeah.
In your time in Ohio specifically, especially say over the last decade or so, are there any particular weather events that we've had locally that really stand out to you, perhaps as something memorable, whether it be a winter storm of some kind, or in your neighborhood, a flooding event, a thunderstorm event? You're in Canfield, and I know there's been even some recent flooding issues in parts of Canfield.
Canfield, where I live in Canfield, I'm considered to live in one of the lower spots of Canfield. And it doesn't take much rain for my yard. I'll send you a picture of, here's my yard underwater. Once again, I have Sawmill Creek behind me. I believe it was in May of 2019, we had a 5-inch rain event.
I think that's right. Yep.
It was just a storm that trained over us for a couple of hours. And it was 5 inches of rain in, I believe, 2.5, 3 hours. I remember that one just for the, you're just like, whoa, holy smokes. I remember sending you pictures, the station pictures of Sawmill Creek. It looked like a full-blown river that night.
Yeah.
And I had never seen that much water.
And part of our message when we talk about these heavy rain events of late, especially I would say going back to about 2018, 2019, is the changing climate is manifesting itself in our part of the country, probably most with heavy rain events. Also, I think warmer overnight lows in the summer in particular. Those are kind of the two things that are the most obvious hallmarks of the changing or warming climate. And yeah, we've had several of these high-end flooding and rain events, and it seems like the 224 corridor, Canfield over to Boardman, just seems to be one of the hot spots, unfortunately. But again, we're going to talk about how to be a weather geek, and you're a proud weather geek like I am, and I know you've got some gizmos and some gadgets and things at your residence. And so talk a little bit about what you have in terms of weather stations, rain gauges, and a snowboard and things like that. So what all do you have in your arsenal?
Weather stations. You're a geek if you have 3 weather stations. I have a Davis Vantage Pro. I use 2 Accurite stations. One of them I bought maybe 6 years ago, and one of them I've had probably almost 30 years now. It's kind of one of those, if it's not broke, don't get rid of it. The only thing, outdoor and indoor humidity don't read exactly right. But this thing it's been my buddy since Florida. I've tracked a lot of weather with that one. You've got the Tempest Weather Flow. Those are the great stations.
Yeah,
I just haven't bought one yet. I'm kind of old school. When one of the 3 breaks, it'll be, because I can't see running a 4th weather station in my house, but I could.
Wouldn't be anything wrong with that.
No, exactly. But the Tempest Weather Flow, that's next on my list. But I've had good luck with Accurite. When you have a station that's 30 years old and it still does everything that it did 30 years ago, that's an awesome station. I don't think not enough is said about Accurite stations.
I would agree with that. And it's one of the questions I get asked a lot when I'm out in the community or even online. People ask me, hey, I'm interested in getting a weather station for my home or for my business. What should I get? And I always kind of say it's a little bit dependent on budget. You can spend easily a few $100s easily on some nice stations, but some stations such as Accurite, and there's several others that are in the kind of lower bracket of what you're going to spend, but a lot of them are pretty good. And
they are.
You've had some that have lasted a long time, and I think as long as you do some just basic maintenance to them and just give them a little tender loving care every now and then and take good care of them, they're going to last you a while. So you don't have to break the bank if you want a personal weather station in your backyard. Put it on the fence, put it up on your roof, whatever you're going to do with it. You don't have to break the bank. You can spend a few $100, or you could spend $100 or less, really.
No,
So.
I mean, the Tempest Weather Flow, those are $300, $350
like
right
that,
now. And the advantage on that one is that there's just no moving parts. You put something up on your roof that has the moving cups and everything, you're going to have a problem. I mean, we're 90 degrees middle of summer, you're 10 below in the middle of winter time. Something breaks and it's on your roof, you're like, oh boy.
And for those who may not be familiar, the Tempest Weather Flow that Ralph is referring to, I own one, and I've had one for about 3 years or so, 4 years now. It's got more modern technology, and there's fewer moving parts. It doesn't have the anemometer with the wind cups. It has a haptic rain gauge, so there's not a physical rain gauge on that thing. It estimates the rain by how fast and hard the raindrops are hitting that taptic sensor that's up top. And in some events, it overestimates the rain or underestimates it. It's not quite as accurate, generally speaking, as having an old school, tipping bucket, they call it, rain gauge. But overall, I'm real pleased with that particular station. It's nice to have, and I think its temperature sensors tend to be a little more accurate than even Davis. If you're familiar at all with weather stations, Davis has always been kind of the gold standard. Ralph has a Vantage Pro. I have a Vantage View weather station. They're both have typically been just the gold standard. But they're, that technology is getting a little long in the tooth now. It still uses all the mechanical parts, the rain gauge and the anemometer cups. But they're still fantastic stations if you want to, spend on the higher end of, kind of the price range of a typical home weather station. Now, when it comes to winter weather, you give us some great measurements on snow from your area, and there, of course, are official good ways to measure snow. It's not just going out and sticking a ruler in the grass. There are better, more official ways, and that includes having a snowboard, which I know that you've had occasion to use, right?
Yeah, the snowboard idea is it's supposed to be 18 by 18 inches, flat surface. You want to keep a flag by it, in the event that you're going out and it's 5, 6, 7 inches, whereas my snowboard. I made my own snowboard, and I kind of used the bridge effect on it. I have mine sitting on top of wood, like a 2x4s. So mine's actually elevated off the ground. So it really, cold air gets underneath it a lot. It doesn't melt, I think, as fast as if I had something on the ground.
Okay.
Snowboard, when you measure snow, if you go out at 7 a.m., you measure, what you got the last 12 hours, last 18 hours. You have to clear off a path and, go back to that white board again. Why? Because the next time you're going to take the next reading, it's going to be another 3-inch reading. So half of your board is continually being cleared off, taking a new measurement. You want to leave the other half active. You want to see what your ground total is. And I will take a ground total off of that board. And I have a picnic table in the backyard on my patio that is kind of like my backup if I have conflicting depth amounts. And it's something when you do a depth amount, you have to, you poke your ruler yardstick a couple different places. You might have a 6-inch depth, a 5-inch depth, 5.5-inch depth, and just kind of take the mean average of all three.
And that's, we talked about weather stations and how you can spend a few $100. A snowboard is an inexpensive item. Another inexpensive way to kind of be a weather geek is having an old school rain gauge. And part of that process, if you want to really provide some nice data to the weather enterprise, you can join an organization for free online called COCORAHS, COCORAHS.org. This is a network. It's a pretty dense network, actually, when you look at the national map. This is a network of weather spotters who routinely, usually in the mornings, will go out, look at their rain gauge, take the official measurement, and report it online. It takes just a second to do that. And, I'm a member of COCORAHS. I know you are as well. But we have some holes in our viewing area where we could really use some more data. And I think of, especially in Mercer County, I think there's only a couple of COCORAHS spotters over there. I think they're almost exclusively in the western part of Mercer County. We could really use some more rainfall data, truth on the ground, if you will, from Central and Mercer County. We could use more data everywhere, but that in our viewing area, I think is especially the case. So COCORAHS.org, check that out if you want to. If you want to become an official spotter, you have to spend $30 or $40 on the official rain gauge. It's a 4-inch cylinder rain gauge, but I've had mine for several years, and they're pretty indestructible.
Yeah, I actually just replaced one, and I had that for 7 years, and they last forever. It's a $30, $35 investment. You can spend upwards of $70 for a really nice one. There's nothing wrong with that. But COCORAHS is so important. I mean, we could look at our phone and get a rainfall estimate, or the National Weather Service, Cleveland or Pittsburgh, and give you what they thought happened in Youngstown or Canfield. But truth on the ground, that's the best thing. COCORAHS is just so easy. It's just become, you report any time between 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the morning. It's once a day.
Yep. And they've got a great app, a mobile app. You can use an old school web browser, but they have a nice mobile app as well. It's really just dead simple. You just put in your total and you're done with it. It takes 2 seconds. So yeah, that's a routine that some weather geeks are into. 365 days of the year, whether it rained or not, you're gonna punch up that app or that website and report your daily rain totals, and in the winter snow totals as well. Another way that ordinary residents, if they're into the weather somewhat, can help us out in the weather enterprise is becoming a certified weather spotter. It's an organization called SKYWARN, and this is a program that's put on by the National Weather Service offices, in which you go and you take a class, if you will. It's an hour long usually. It's free, and in recent years, it's changed a little bit due to budget cutbacks and whatnot at the Weather Service level. Sometimes they don't do these classes in every county anymore. Sometimes they're virtual, but sometimes they're still in person. This past spring in Columbiana County, we did have an in-person session at CT put on by the Pittsburgh National Weather Service office. So SKYWARN will train citizens to spot certain weather phenomena like clouds. We get a lot of pictures and comments whenever threatening weather is happening of dark, scary clouds. And some people swear they're funnel clouds or they're tornadoes or something like that. Chances are, a lot of the times, they're what we call scud clouds, or maybe they're just a dark, scary looking cloud and nothing more than that. Becoming a SKYWARN spotter will help you to kind of differentiate between just run-of-the-mill kind of scary dark clouds and the stuff that we need to be a little bit more concerned with. It also kind of teaches you a little bit about spotting other weather phenomena as well. Have you taken a SKYWARN class in our local area?
I've taken the one locally. I've taken them back in West Palm Beach, Florida, where I lived down there for a while. I took one down in North Carolina when I lived down there as well, because it changes everywhere. Florida was kind of more intense of a program down there. Up here, the last one I did in person, it's probably about 3 or 4 years ago, was at Austintown Fitch High School. And since then, they've now kind of gone to the online.
For the more often than not, yeah.
Which is kind of, it was cool to always go
Sure.
Once a year, run into people you hadn't seen in a year, fellow geekers, if you will.
Yep. See some of the same faces
Yeah.
each time, that's for sure. Kind of wrapping things up, one of the things that you're also into as kind of a hobby a little bit is photography, weather photography. You send us a lot of nice pictures when you're out and about, either in your home in Canfield or somewhere else around the area. And we always appreciate your pictures and anybody else who sends us some pictures. A lot of us are tempted to whip out their phone and take a picture, and sometimes those pictures are really good. Sometimes a higher end camera is required. Tell us a little bit about, kind of what you use to take pictures on a routine basis, either at your home or when you're out and about.
I used to have some of the nicest cameras in the world, Nikons and what have you. And when phones became so advanced with technology, I use a Samsung S23. It's not the newest one out there right now. It's a 1.5 years old. It takes the greatest pictures. When I first got into phones a few years ago, that I went in and I said, I just want a phone that takes a good picture. I didn't care about phone quality as far as making calls. I wanted a great picture and I wanted fast internet. And these things make you look like a genius. They really
forgiving.
do. You just take a picture. I mean, and there's products out there like Snapseed, and I think people will take a picture of a sunset or a sunrise or a storm cloud, and they want to add color to it. They want to add. I take pictures as I take them. That's what I saw. I've experimented and added color to some of my pictures, and I'm like, that's that's not the way I saw it. That's not the way it was presented to me. I just take them naturally. That's just the way they were supposed to be.
I agree with that. I think that's the way to go. Pictures that look a little too good, we're always a little suspicious of. The natural ones are definitely the ones we tend to share a little bit more than ones that appear to be touched up a little bit too much. So another way you can help us out there, we've been talking about how to be a weather geek, but even if you're not so much of a geek, but if you just want to help us out and send us pictures, you can do that multiple ways these days. It doesn't have to be over email. A lot of us are used to emailing pictures. And you can do that, weatherpics, PICS, at WFMJ.com. But on the Storm Tracker 21 app, which we hope everyone has downloaded, you can submit pictures right on the app like that. You can also, of course, hit us up on social media, either myself, my accounts on Facebook or Instagram or X or whatever your social media of choice is. But we have the Storm Tracker 21 accounts on most social media outlets as well. So we're always looking for not only more weather observations and how much rain you saw and how much snow you saw, but just what you witnessed out there. Pictures of the sky, pictures of things going on, flooding and other phenomena. The more ground truth, the better. So, Ralph, thanks for helping us be a better weather geek today. We really appreciate your time, and keep that data coming to us. We always want to gobble it right up. So,
Coming from you, that means a lot, and I appreciate you having me here
Thank
today.
you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so again, you can find our podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts. New episodes are dropped every Thursday morning, the 21 News family of podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts, look for new episodes dropping Thursday morning, and we'll have more weather-related radar podcasts coming up later this year. Thank you.